Yo, what's going on, guys? It's G Miners here. Today, we have one of the best endgame content builds since the release of Void 3.0. This is going to be great for solo players as we can deal with champions, bosses, have great ad clear, and we'll also have Devour for survivability. The main focus is going to be on taking out Overload champions, which, as we know, are definitely going to be in the Master Val raid when that releases next week. So this build is going to be great whether you are just getting into endgame content or are trying to master it. Before we get into the build, if you guys end up liking this video and using the builds, all I ask is that you drop a like and sub down below. Both are completely free, they help me out a ton, and you can always change your mind later. This build is on Warlock, and it's going to center around three things. First are the Controverse holds, second is the Aspect Chaos Accelerant, and then lastly is the seasonal mod for Overload grenades. In order to get everything to synergize properly with this build, you're going to need the right subclass setup, so let's take a look at what we are running first. First and foremost, you are going to need Vortex grenades. These are going to synergize the best with Controverse holds and Chaos Accelerant. Speaking of which, our first aspect is Chaos Accelerant, which will allow us to charge our Void grenades so that they have increased effects. For Vortex, this increased effect is going to mean increased AoE and increased duration. We are also running Devour, which is also known as Feed the Void, as our second aspect. The main reason for this is because of the increased grenade energy that we'll get back from getting kills. Each kill with a grenade will proc Devour, and even if we can't maintain Devour because ads are too beefy in endgame content, at least getting 1 or 2 kills will provide us with any grenade energy that we are missing. These two aspects will allow us to use 3 total fragments. First, we are using Echo of Undermining. This is a no-brainer on grenade builds, as each grenade will do 15% more damage to targets, as enemies hit by grenades will become weakened. But this weakened effect also helps a ton with taking down champions, especially when under power. After that, we have Echo of Remnants, which will increase the duration of our Vortex grenade by another little bit, and ultimately we want all the extra duration we can get, because that means there is going to be more time to deal damage and get grenade energy back from Controverse. Lastly, the most OP fragment that we are running is Echo of Instability. Each time we get a grenade kill, we will get 15 seconds of volatile rounds for all Void weapons. There are 2 exotic weapons that we will be running with this build that I will go over later, both of which are Void, OP as hell, and have champion mods this season, so volatile rounds will fit into those perfectly. For our Vortex grenades, the base grenade is going to last around 4 seconds on its own. After adding Echo of Remnants, this is going to go up to almost a full 6 seconds. And then with Chaos Accelerant, a charged Vortex grenade, and then still running Remnants itself, this reaches its max duration of just over 7 seconds. So using both Remnants and Chaos Accelerant does stack to add extra grenade lingering. Without any mods on, I was messing around with this build, and even in the K1 Revelation Lost Sector at Master difficulty, this build felt great. It did have Void Burn, which definitely helps, but just the general play and synergy between using grenades for debuffs on champions and then using volatile rounds on red bars, everything felt great. This is also what my team used for the Glassway GM this season. I was on stasis, but we had another Warlock that would toss a grenade into Overload champions that I had frozen, and it made dealing with Overloads extremely easy. The main 2 weapons that I am running on this build are the Le Monarch and the Collective Obligation. One is good for unstops, and the other is obviously good for anti-barriers, and since we will always have Overload grenades, this means we can always cover both champion types. These are both also Void, as I mentioned, and have exotic perks that directly synergize with Void 3.0, so this is going to work really great for our subclass, and again, with volatile rounds. On top of this, meta for DPS on champs and bosses is either linears or rockets this season, so your exotic slot should always be free unless you are running galley. And on top of this, you can always sub out these weapons for legendary equivalents if you need to run something like Arbalest. With this build, we are going to be running a few mods that will make it better overall, especially for endgame content, but in D2, endgame content means not running out to grab elemental wells every 7 seconds and playing super risky, so a lot of the mods that we are going to have to make this build useful are going to be ones that you can reliably use while playing safe. I'm going to go over the main mods, aka combat style mods first, and then the support mods after. The supporting mods make a huge difference though, so make sure to check out both of these, otherwise the build won't be nearly as strong in Master or Grandmaster content. Okay, so first up is going to be Taking Charge. This will make us charged with light by grabbing Orbs of Power. As I mentioned with elemental wells, these can also be risky to grab in endgame content, so with this, we are also going to be running precision charge. This is going to allow us to get charged by rapidly killing enemies with precision hits with bows, but if you opt to run something like a pulse for unstopped champions, this can easily be switched over to the mod swift charge. The first mod that we are going to have that actually consumes our stacks of charge with light is going to be high energy fire. This will almost always provide us with a 20% buff to weapon damage, which will help in general with ad clear, and then most importantly with taking down champions. Because this will consume our charge with light so rapidly, in order to maintain stacks, we are also going to be using the mod stacks on stacks to double the amount of charges that we get each time. The other reason I wanted to make sure we almost always were charged with light is because our last mod is protective light. I know this got nerfed into the ground, but even at 10%, this can still save your life, and there aren't any other mods in the game that can do this on command like protective light can. When going up against champions, the essence of this build is to make yourself a one-man army. You can deal with any type of champion and will always be able to supply yourself with a buff and a debuff on command. And then the constant volatile rounds and high energy fire that you get will also make ad clearing a joke. So in all contexts, this build is going to hold its own. In order to stun overload champions, generate orbs of power, and in general stay alive in endgame content, this is where some of the minor mods we are using are going to come into play. On our helmet, we are running Harmonic Siphon. You can also run Void Siphon, but that just takes up more mod slots, so there's really no reason to do that. I also don't know if multiple copies stack to increase orb generation, so if you do know, comment that below because I'm definitely curious, but ultimately the main reason we have these is so that we can take advantage of taking charge for some extra stacks of charge with light. On our gauntlets, this is obviously where we are using champion mods, but if you wanted to run Controverse with Stasis Affinity and use something like Grenade Kickstart, that's completely doable if you only need one champ mod as well. On our chest piece, we have double Thermoshock plating. If you're doing something with Void Burn, I would definitely switch these out to 2 Void Resist mods, but for things like Master Vow and most of the GMs this season with Acute Arc and Acute Solar Burn, Thermoshock is going to be better. On my boots, I am running Recuperation. This again takes advantage of the orbs we are generating to help keep us alive with chunks of health back. And then lastly, on our class item, we have Overload Grenades, and then we also have Lucent Finisher, which will allow us to finish champions and generate heavy ammo for ourselves and our teammates. This mod is insane, especially in endgame content, because you can consistently use heavy ammo on champions and then not have to worry about your ammo economy because you get ammo right back. Overall, with this build, your main goal is to use your grenades to take out big chunks of ads and then give yourself volatile rounds. And then from there, you can ad clear from afar with a pulse or a bow so that you never need to push yourself into a position where you are too exposed. You should also be able to maintain Devour to a decent degree while under power, so this should make sure that you always get your grenade back, even if Controverse only returns like 80% of your total energy. You can save your super and heavy ammo for champs and bosses, and then also pair this build with a blinding GL for even more control. Anyways, that is all for this video, guys. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I do also have a dim link for the build in a pinned comment, so make sure to check that out. As always, have a good one. Peace.